Witcher is someone who has undergone many torturous years of extensive training, harsh mental and physical conditioning, and rituals with one purpose in mind: to fight the monsters of the world. The techniques involved in making a Witcher, especially the rituals, are kept a closely guarded secret by the Witcher schools, such as the School of the Wolf located at Kaer Morhen. All of this is to prepare the Witchers to become monster slayers for hire. Geralt of Riva, the central character in Andrzej Sapkowski's Witcher series and the games inspired by them, is said in the stories to be one of the greatest witches, or at least the most well known within the continent, with even many common folk knowing the tales of Geralt of Riva through the form of the songs of the bard Jaskier. Regardless, he is legendary and known around the world, but there can be a debate as to if he is actually famous, or rather infamous, with it open to interpretations, and is very subjective to say the least, a question that even Geralt himself could not answer. In the Witcher books, the origin of the witches is surrounded in a lot of mystery, with it not really being developed that deeply. Unlike other fantasy series, the Witcher universe does not have a lot of supporting universe building, such as Fire and Blood does for George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire, or the Silmarillion in Tolkien's Legendarium. But thanks to the video games and the tabletop game, which greatly expand upon the lore of the books, there is some idea of the wider lore, even if this information is not strictly explicitly canon to the book. Within the background lore of the tabletop role-playing game, it goes into more detail on the creation of the first Witchers. However, where this could fit into the canon of the video games and the books is not wholly clear, and it's almost certainly not canon to the books. But it states that as humans settled in the northern part of the continent, they had to deal with a vast array of different monsters that inhabited the land after the conjunction of the spheres, to which humans and even the elder races were poorly equipped to deal with. To fix this, the northern rulers tasked their mages and sorcerers to create magic-wielding warriors to deal with these monsters for them. However, from the books we do learn that in terms of the physical creation of the witches, mages and sorcerers carried out experiments at Risberg Castle, and the first Witcher was created there. Unfortunately, these proto-witches proved to have limited magical potential, and thus were deemed failures and banished from the castle. After these witches were banished, they were brought to Castle Morgrang by a handful of mages who wished to continue their experiments. Here, the first generation of witches continued to train, while the mages created more, soon establishing the Order of the Witches. As the first group of original witches set out on the path, the first age of the witches technically began. However, over time, the Order of the Witches, after being largely abandoned by the original mages involved in the creation of the witches, had a violent fight break out amongst their own, resulting in several deaths and a schism within the organization. And with the witches' growing disillusionment about their order's purpose, they left as well, and eventually led to the Order's end, which all equated to the Order's downfall, when the final witches abandoned the castle. After the original order ended, the 6 independent schools of the witches were built, wherein the second era of the witches began, which the witches themselves refer to as the Golden Age, with the continent divided between each schools, with each individual school creating their own witches. Their work became effectively organized. Past tensions between them simmered down, and when witches from different schools did indeed cross paths, no blood was shed, as they each knew they had their own territory to work in, making them treat the other schools more like brothers than the bitter enemies that they were before. But things would slowly start to crumble, and by the mid-1160s, the witches had in truth been too successful at the purpose they were created for. Monsters began to become increasingly rare, with them hardly even being an issue for most common folk by now. Due to the propaganda from the churches of the north and the distrust of their rulers, witches in turn became the monsters they were designed to hunt in the first place by most of the population. The 5 schools each came under attack from varying different groups of people, and by the time the last of the schools fell, the number of witches had diminished greatly. While it's impossible to know how much of this can fit into the book canon, the tabletop games and the video games have done a lot to flesh out this part of the lore which had scant information before. Those destined to become witches are typically taken as children, often left by their parents or taken by the rule of surprise. They are subjected to intense alchemical processes, such as the trial of the grasses, wherein the witches consume mutagenic compounds, which fundamentally change their bodies and how they function. It is said that this process is painful beyond any understanding, and that 70% of witches that go under this process die during it. But it physically shapes them into what we know a witcher to be today. They also undergo relentless physical training and magical training to make them dangerous and highly versatile against the vast array of opponents they might face, both monsters and men. Many witches possess superhuman speed, strength, among other deadly powers. These procedures ultimately mean that each fully trained witcher is a mutant built specifically to hunt to kill monsters. These enhancements vary from witcher to witcher depending on how the mutations affect them, but in most cases the results of the mutations are shared by all witchers. Geralt of Riva is said to have responded so well to the mutagenic changes that he underwent extra mutations that enhanced his natural abilities even above that of his fellow witchers. All witchers have cat-like eyes that grant them enhanced night vision. They can constrict their pupils to see in blinding lights, or open them further to see in near pitch darkness. The night vision can be further enhanced with the use of witcher potions, but on its own it's good enough not to require further enhancement. All their senses are overall enhanced, allowing them to identify the species of animal from the scent of their blood and detect nearby creatures when they're out of sight. However, there is a downside to all this, as their eyes also make them stand out greatly from the normal human population and makes identifying a witcher a much easier task. Thus, while their eyes can certainly be a benefit in a practical monster hunting sense, they can also be a hindrance. Though the witch's eyes are one way for them to stick out, another standard means of identification is their witcher's medallion. It aids in the detection of monsters and magic, and no witcher would willingly part with one. Most witchers also possess an almost complete resistance to disease. In some witchers, the resistance is so strong that it almost functions as immunity that, alongside an overall boosted immune system, allows them to consume large quantities of potions that would prove deadly if consumed by a normal person. The amount of potions one witcher could consume differs from witcher to witcher, relying on how effectively the mutagen had enhanced them. Their resistances are also accompanied by a general lower heart rate and accelerated healing, granting quicker recovery from injuries. However, these injuries can still prove to be fatal if not cared for correctly, much like a normal man. The mutations also grant a long lifespan and a prolonged youth. The head of the Witcher School of the Wolf, Vesemir, is said to be a few centuries old by the start of the book series, but has the look of a man in his 50s. But in truth, seeing an old witcher is incredibly rare. Despite long lifespans, many are killed fighting monsters before they even get to the point of being old. Witchers also possess exceptionally increased strength, speed, reflexes, and endurance, far beyond any normal or well-trained human, that allows them to swiftly end fights with minimal effort and perform physical feats non-witchers couldn't hope to match. Not only does this allow them to combat monsters, but large groups of human foes with ease as well. A witch's physical skills alone are sufficient to defeat most monsters single-handedly. If combined with the extensive training and proper weaponry, they have been known to survive the strikes of powerful monsters such as giants that would otherwise kill any other with a single blow. Most witches also have the ability to perform simple but versatile combat-based magic in the form of signs, used by making symbols with your fingers, and an audible phrase in most cases, though some exceptionally talented witches, such as Geralt of Riva, are capable of performing signs without vocalizing it. They also developed a sixth sense that allows them to feel things around them, be it items of importance or people's immediate intentions. This explains their ability to track and hunt people and monsters. It should also be noted that in the case of Geralt of Riva, his magical abilities are much more prevalent than most given his supposed parentage. Though most witches are proficient in the use of any weapon that comes to hand, a witch's training focuses primarily on two weapons, a steel sword and a silver sword, one for humans, one for monsters. While in the video games, Geralt is shown wielding both weapons at the same time upon his back. In the books, Geralt mostly uses his steel sword, only really equipping his silver when he knows he's about to face a monster. While this might seem a bit odd, the truth is a silver sword is a very valuable object and expensive to replace if damaged or lost, hence why witches will take great care of them. Witchers also use powerful potions, having developed an advanced tolerance to their inherent toxicity, but still limited to a few at a time, as even one of their weaker brews would be fatal to an ordinary human. Much like many aspects of becoming a Witcher, how these potions are made is a closely guarded secret. Typically, a Witcher is a formidable and often overwhelming opponent in combat to more common races thanks to their superhuman physical prowess, regenerative capabilities, and of course their magic. But they are not invincible. They can still make mistakes, take a single misstep in a battle against a common man or fearsome supernatural foe, or be overwhelmed by the number of individuals who have the skill to match them. It is a common belief, even among the witches themselves, that they have been stripped of their capacity for emotion. This may be debatable and rather relative, considering the rigors of their training and the dangers they face on a day-to-day basis. It is possible they simply have never had the time or exposure to society to develop or really recognize the reactions to the mundane experiences that most would take for granted. It may also be explained that the combination of their hard training, mutations, and seclusion from most normal society that may encourage their blunted emotional expression, as Geralt, Lambeth, and Eskel all exhibit emotional heights concerning love, joy, fear and anger, lust and sympathy, among various others.